Hello, everybody. My name is Peter. I'm the Software Product Manager at OxTS, and I am joined by my colleague Kit, a Support Engineer. And welcome to the webinar. This is the 2.8 update, What's New in NAVsuite and RT-Range Suite. So this webinar is being recorded. Please keep your mic on mute. I believe you're in listen-only mode, but do try and keep it on mute just in case. The presentation will last approximately 30 minutes, and there's time for questions at the end. So what we're going to take you through is how to update your OxTS software. That will take a look at what it means for your old units and files, and how often software should be updated in line with our development practices. Then both Kit and I will walk you through what's included in the 2.8 update. This will be a walkthrough of the new features, enhancements really, and it's not all of the work that we've done, it's just kind of the highlight reel, but we'll give you information as to where you can find the post-release notes for more information should you wish. But I'll hand over to Kit and he's going to talk you through updating your software and what it means and when you should do it.
Cool, thank you, Pete, and hello, everybody. Yes, so at OxTS, we offer two major software packages, NAVsuite, which is used alongside our INS products like the RT3000, and RT-Range Suite, which is used again alongside range systems like the RT-Range S. And we offer both of these packages free of charge, and you can download the latest version from the support website, which is linked to you on the screen there. To navigate to the software section, just click on the software in the main menu and then click on the relevant package. So the NAVsuite page will take you to where the screenshot is on the right-hand side of the slide. And it will have a message to say, please sign in. So you just need to sign up, provide your email, and then once you've signed in, the download button will be available for you, and clicking this will just always download the most recent NAVsuite or RT-Range Suite that's available. We aim to update these packages about twice a year. The software team's always working on the next release and incorporating any bugs which are found during internal testing or by customers, and new enhancements. And the reason we release these quite frequently is just to make sure that customers always have access to the sort of best software that we have available, and improves the experience for everybody. Whenever we work on a new version of the software, we try and ensure that it's completely compatible with older units and firmware versions, but also old files which are created by previous software versions. So for example, for NAVsuite, for NavConfig, we ensure that you can configure any device, any OxTS INS that you have with any firmware version, but also that it can read any configuration files that you have created previously on older versions of the software. And NAVsuite does a really good job of reading which firmware version you have running on your device, and then only offering you the features which are available on that firmware. However, RT-Range Suite, if you download the latest version of the software, will offer you all of the features, and some of these features might only be available on the most recent firmware version. So we recommend everyone always keep the most up-to-date NAVsuite, but maybe with RT-Range, it's not quite as sort of recommended to update, just because sometimes the software can offer you features which aren't supported by your firmware. So you might be trying to configure something which you don't have access to, and it can just lead to confusion down the line. But if there is a bug in the sort of RT-Range software version you're using, then upgrading is a good way to go. So what's included in each firmware and software release? So it's two things mostly. It's new features or enhancements, but it's also bug fixes. So there's a list on the slide of some sort of big new features that were included in some of the more recent releases. But you can see the full list of features and bug fixes which are included in each software by going to our technical support site, so the same place where you've downloaded the software from, and then underneath the download section on the NAVsuite page, for example, there is a software version log, and that's a drop down. So if you click on that, it will show you the enhancement list for each firmware version, but also the major bug fixes as well. And it's the same for firmware. So if you go onto the product page of your product, so if you've got an RT3000, navigate to the RT3000 page, and then in the same place, there will be a firmware version log, and you can see what features were implemented in each of the different firmware versions as well. So that's why you should download your software and how to do it and how often. So now Pete's just going to take you through what's included in the latest version of the NAVsuite.
Thanks, Kit. Yep, so with our latest release of 2.8, we made changes to NavConfig, NavDisplay, NavSolve, and NavGraph, which are some of the key applications in our NAVsuite. What I'm going to do is take you through the main changes that we made and why they're beneficial. So first off, in NavConfig, there is a change in the Accuracies tab in Advanced Tools. What we've done is added a reset button, which will reset all values of the accuracies to the OxTS default. This is particularly useful if you are reading from a device which you know has the settings that you require, but may also have tighter accuracies. Being able to reset to the OxTS default means that you should be able to get into spec more easily in your warm-up because it's not using the tightened ones from previous. And this just means that you don't need to know the OxTS values, which we deem appropriate for a quick start on warm-ups, and you can just click the reset button instead. In NavDisplay, we've added Wi-Fi status messages. So with our V3 hardware, we introduced a Wi-Fi board and also the internal N-trip. And part of our wish to increase usability and visibility of what is going on in the box, we've included the status messages, which mean that you can monitor in real time your connection to either the Wi-Fi itself or the access point status. This will tell you whether you are connected and enabled or disabled, with some error messages as well. What we hope this allows you to do is troubleshoot your setup more easily in terms of having an N-trip setup potentially using the Wi-Fi internally. You'll be able to troubleshoot if you have issues where the dropouts may be occurring. And if you can't troubleshoot it yourself in real time, you've got the option then to have more information to provide to support. And so these are just available by going to Widgets, Digital, and then searching in the filter option for Wi-Fi, and you'll be able to find them there. Then in NavSolve, we are now able to modify base station locations. So as you can see in the highlight, in the location column, there is now an approximate line with modify and revert. An observed file from a base station generally has an approximated location of the base station. This is not the case for all countries. For instance, the Ordnance Survey in the UK will give the exact location of their base stations in that header. However, generally these are approximated. What this means is that you can sometimes see shift over time on the same areas. For example, if you are doing point clouds and you are running over the same bit of run area each time, and you're using the same base station, you can see shift from your point clouds because the corrections are coming from a slightly different point. So what we've enabled you to do is provide the exact location, which you should be able to find from your base station provider's website or to get in touch with them. And if you've made a mistake in that position, you can always revert to the estimated one from the observed file header. And also you can see here that we've included the show Rhinex.n and .g files. These are supplementary files to the .o observed file for base stations. This is allowing you to make sure that you're filtering on the types of data you want to be including in your post-processing in the table above, and will allow you to include that data in it. This has mixed results depending on the NG files themselves that are being used, but they are available to you if you need them. And it's worth pointing out that when you do include base station files in your post-processing, we will turn on our GX-IX type coupling algorithms. What this means, especially for survey applications, is if your RT is or your XNAV or Survey Plus is in line with your LiDAR at a say a 30-degree angle to the ground, sometimes that means that your LiDAR scanning is better because it's got a closer view of the ground. Turning on GX-IX, our algorithms will try and correct what it perceives as inaccuracies because the RT is not in line with the vehicle itself. So it's worth noting that if you can post-process and that is your LiDAR setup without a base station, you should do so. And there is a warning to let you know that GX-IX is turned on by default and just above the processing section in this page. So they're the main changes we made in NAVsuite. There are more feature enhancements, but a bit smaller, and also bug fixes. They're available to you on the verbose release notes, as mentioned already. But now I'm going to hand you over to Kit, who is our RT-Range Suite expert.
Cool, thanks, Pete. Yes, I'm going to go through some of the changes in the RT-Range Suite. The first thing I'm going to mention, though, is actually a firmware upgrade change. So alongside the release of NAVsuite 2.8 and RT-Range Suite, we have also developed a new firmware for the RT3000 v3, and I'll talk to you about that now as well. But in the software, the major changes are in configure RT-Range, where we've made some changes to the user interface, and there's also some added functionality to map creation and the feature point survey tool as well. So first we'll have a look at this firmware update. So currently, if you have an RT3000 v3 and you've unlocked the RT-Range functionality, to be able to configure the RT-Range functionality of that unit, you currently need to be able to initialize that unit first, and that requires GNSS signal and antennas set up. So you'll find you have to be in the vehicle usually to configure this unit. And basically the reason behind that is because the RT3000 v3 needs to be initialized to output an RCOM stream. And this is the stream which the RT-Range Suite uses to identify if there are any RT-Range systems on the network. And so the Range Suite, without seeing this RCOM stream, isn't able to identify that you have a range device connected. However, with this new firmware update, the RT3000 v3 will automatically output that RCOM, even if you aren't initialized, if you have that range functionality unlocked. And this means you'll be able to pre-configure the range aspects of the RT3000 V3 from the office on the bench without any GNSS antennas connected. And this is a really useful feature. Because the firmware update has come within a year of the release of the RT3000 V3 product, anyone who has this product is eligible for this firmware update for free of charge. And to get hold of it, you need to just need to contact your local channel partner. And there's a link at the end of this presentation for how to find your nearest channel partner if you don't know who that is. But please reach out to them if you have one of these products and ask for this firmware update, because it does really improve the sort of ease of use of the product. So that's the firmware update, and now we'll have a look at the software changes. The first thing you'll notice is that when you open RT-Range Suite, Configure RT-Range is the top application in the main menu. So previously it was hidden away in real-time display, but we know that quite often when you launch the RT-Range Suite, the first thing you want to do is configure your RT-Range. So now you can do that with your first click in the application. Now, once you've opened RT-Range Suite, once you've opened Configure RT-Range, you'll notice a couple of changes to the user interface. First of all, is switching the range measurement section with the lane measurement section. So previously, after you've set up your hunter and chosen how many targets you have, you would normally proceed to your lane measurements, so choosing the points A, B, and C, which your lane measurements are defined by. However, we've moved that section to after the range measurement section, because we've now chosen to define points A, B, and C relative to the sensor point or polygon origin rather than the position of the INS. And this is just for making those measurements easier. And because you choose the position of the polygon origin in your range measurement section, it makes sense for this section to come first. And now the second change we've made is changing the icon used for the INS. You can see it's now a red box, and that's just to help you identify it as the INS and differentiate it from the polygon origin or sensor point. You'll notice in this image here that the polygon origin is the target, and it's on the front bumper. And now if we move to the next slide, you'll see that the sensor point is also on the front bumper, and that the positions of A, B, and C are relative to that sensor point. So this is the reason why lane measurements has come later on in the configuration. It's because you want to choose where that sensor point is. And then when you're defining your positions A, B, and C, you'll be measuring relative to that rather than relative to the INS. So those are the user interface changes we've made in Configure RT-Range. Now I'm just move on to the functionality that's been added to the map creation wizard, and it's the same functionality that's been added to the feature point survey tool as well. So once you've uploaded your line files and created your start line to your map, there is an option to export to KML, and this allows you to view your map on Google Earth. So all you have to do to use this function is to right click on the canvas, and the only option there is to export to KML. And this is what it would look like. So you can see the two lines have been drawn here. And this feature is really useful for verifying that your map is accurate, but you can also, because this functionality is already included in NavGraph, you can export your position trace to KML as well, and then you can see the position of your vehicle relative to your map lines too. And here's an example showing that, where we've taken a map file and we've done a test with a slalom maneuver, and we've exported the map file to KML, and we've also exported the ncom file to KML as well, overlaid them here, and you can compare the INS's position with the map. So a really good tool for sort of verifying your test. And we've included the same functionality in Feature Point Survey. So the Feature Point Survey tool used for surveying the positions of key features on your test area. Once you've surveyed the positions of these features, you can do the same thing again. So right click on the export to KML option, and that will save the positions of those feature points and load them up into Google Earth as dropped pins. And again, you can combine this with the functionality in NavGraph to export your position trace and just compare the position of your vehicle to key points of interest on your test ground. And that's a quick run through of all of the new enhancements in RT-Range Suite and NAVsuite. Now we can start to have a look at some of the questions that you have. If you haven't submitted your questions yet, feel free to submit them in the GoToWebinar window, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. So first question we have in, do you have any intention to support Linux applications in the future? Do you want to take that one, Pete?
Yep, thanks, Kit. So with Linux applications, we do have a command line function called NAVsolve CMD, and this is a NAVsolve Lite essentially for the command line that's built in .NET Core, which allows both Windows and Linux compatibility. So we do have one already, and post-processing really fits well with this based on the automated nature that, of the workflow that it allows. As for GUI applications in Linux, we haven't looked into this as yet, with the focus mainly being on Windows OS. But obviously we're always looking for business reasons to do so. So if it's something that matters to you in your business, then you can get in touch, and it's the kind of thing that we would look into. But our focus at the moment is command line based functionality and improving the NAVsolve CMD, which we released at the start of the year. A couple of other questions that we've got. So any plans for a check for updates button in NAVsuite? I'd really like to do this. The current way of doing this, I know, is through channel partners or by going onto our website and checking yourself. But what I'd really like to be able to do is build up the functionality of NavStart and the RT range menu to allow users to, if they're connected to the internet, for them to be able to have an automated push notification that tells you whether there's an update or something, which hopefully means that you can more efficiently update your set of hardware laptops across your office and department more efficiently. And then any idea on what's coming in the future? As Kit mentioned, we're always developing the next update. So once we go through the support acceptance testing, we're generally building up for the foundation of the next set of work. Our next release will focus on improving Nav Display's performance and usability. It has some fundamental code change work going into it so that it runs quicker. You can more easily access its functionality and hopefully be able to work with it much better. And we'll also be including the 12-pole Butterworth filter for post-processing, which will then allow you to be creating data that's in line with the Euro NCAP roadmap too. Then our last question. So if I've placed an order, will the USB stick be updated? So orders from the 4th of May will include this. So we released these to the market on the 4th of May. So anything before then, if it's still in transit to you, you'll need to look at the Zendesk to do the update. But anything from the 4th of May, the USB sticks in there should have the latest updates. It's also worth mentioning that firmware update as well, though. So if you've got a V3 and you need the firmware update, do get in touch with your channel partner to get that update sorted. It's free of charge because your V3s are under the year, and it will greatly improve the experience of using the RT range, which is why we wanted to get it in as soon as we could, just so you had that with peace of mind. So definitely make sure to get in touch. And you can see at the bottom of your screen currently, we have the Contact Us, Find a Distributor on our website. So please do go there if you don't know who that is. Then, so we've got no other questions. So for this additional information, obviously this is one of like a series of webinars. And you can access these from the website on the Resources Hub. So if you found this useful and you want to learn more from the OxTS Centre of Excellence, do sign up to the others. They're obviously free for you to join, and hopefully will give you greater insight into getting the best out of your hardware and software. Then, as ever, if you need to troubleshoot, you've got some queries about how to use the hardware, or you're experiencing problems, get in touch with support and they will be able to help you out. And then if you've got ideas, you know that you want the software to be doing something for you, there's a piece of hardware that you would want to incorporate, anything that you think will improve and enhance our product set for you, get in touch. We'd love to hear your ideas, and send those to ideas@oxts.com. Which is an inbox that is managed by the product managers here at OxTS. And so yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And then there are some key contact numbers as well, which are shown here. Yeah, there you go. So the sales assistants, technical support, and other inquiries. So we've got the numbers at the end of these slides as well. Obviously, this has been recorded and will be made available to people to revisit. So do note those numbers down if you need to get in touch. These are our UK office numbers. And you can also email info@oxts.com if you've got any general queries. That's it from us. Obviously, you can always ask us questions by just getting in touch with the relevant people. Thank you for joining today. Thank you, Kit, for taking us through the range updates, and hopefully we'll see you again soon in one of our other webinars. But otherwise, I hope you have a good rest of the day and enjoy your weekend that's coming up as well.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, and take care, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.